Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_dada. Well, there's a lot to talk about today. Some more funny little anecdotes about the Jets and the disaster that they are. Quite a bit going on as far as the Packers. It's I don't know that I've parsed through absolutely everything. I've listened to little bits here and there from the locker room stuff and Matt LaFleur's comments and everything. It sounds like we're pretty much right on the nose, and the reports coming out about Romeo Doubs' issues seem to be on the nose. That he's worried about the contract he's going to get, and the way that things are going, he's not going to be that number one dominant guy, and he's upset about it. And Christian Watson was, and we'll get to it, more or less alluding to the fact that it's a problem, and the camaraderie is beginning to be a problem, which is really upsetting because this was a tight group, and it was an excited group and a motivated group, and then Doubs decides to get an attitude, and it really seems to have caused a rift in the group. But anyways, I do want to start off, first of all, by hoping everybody is doing really well. By the time this comes out, hopefully everybody's okay down in Florida. I know I have family down there. My wife has family down there. We have listeners that are down there. I talked to one of them so far, but I know there's several people, quite a few people that listen from down in Florida. So hopefully you guys are either evacuated or doing okay. I know my family, her family have all decided to hunker down, including in Sarasota, Florida for some reason. But just wishing you guys the best and hoping everybody's doing okay. I know I was just upstairs watching what was going on. It's 5:30 Central Time right now, so the hurricane is just making landfall, which is kind of a stupid term. I learned that it means half of the eye is across the land, which makes the landfall. That freaking hurricane hit like a long time ago. Like it's there. But again, I don't know. I've been watching the tornadoes, which look pretty devastating. I don't know the result of what happened with this hurricane. I'm hoping everything's going to be all right for everybody. But I just wanted to start off with that, I suppose. I tell you what, why don't we start with the Packers stuff, just because I don't honestly know how long this is going to take. I don't want to start with some other stuff, making fun of the Eagles' defense being as bad as I thought they'd be, or anything like that. No, I want to start off with the Packers. They do suck, by the way. I freaking called it. You know what? No, I'm going to do it now. So if you've been listening a while, you remember I had said I think the Fangio defense is dead. I think it's dead. It's not just, last year we had Joe Barry, and Joe Barry's a bum. Joe Barry employed a defense that doesn't work in the NFL anymore. And I went through and I looked at it, and there were a bunch. I want to say there were like 8 or 9 or something like that, defenses that were in some way like a Fangio-style defense. It was, again, it spread like wildfire because it was the most popular style of defense. So everybody that was a Fangio disciple at any time ended up getting hired away. It was the Miami, obviously, the Packers, the Chargers, I don't know, the Eagles. They were all Fangio guys. Fangio ended up having, I think, the best defense last year of all the Fangio guys, and I want to say he was like 13th or 14th. There wasn't a single good Fangio defense, despite being almost half the NFL. Maybe a third, a quarter, I don't know. This year I went and looked. I'm having a hard time finding teams that run a Fangio defense. Why? Because all of the guys that were defensive coordinators that are Fangio style, they all have jobs. In fact, one of them is our DB coach in Green Bay right now because they're very talented. They're very, very talented coaches. The specific scheme, though, is no longer in demand. So their minds, as brilliant defensive people, who's the other one? Sean Desai. Sean Desai was like, this guy's the biggest pile of crap ever. He's like assistant head coach / defensive assistant, whatever. He's got some major title somewhere. So these guys are still in high demand, but that defense is not working. To the best of my knowledge, and I did a very cursory look, I don't know of anybody that's running it aside from Philadelphia right now. They decided, unlike everybody else, the Packers ditched it and went in a different direction. Miami ditched it. They hired a Baltimore guy. The Chargers ditched it, and they went and got the Michigan defensive coordinator out of college. They have like the number 2 defense in football right now. Everybody that ran it last year decided we're not doing this anymore, and they went in a different direction. They went with the more aggressive, again, Baltimore or more of a 49ers style or whatever the case may be. Jets, that whole thing. Vic Fangio is the defensive coordinator in Philadelphia, is maybe the only guy left because Philadelphia is the only team stupid enough to not realize that we need to abandon this. They're like, no. We just need to find the right Fangio guy. And, oh, look at this. I can't believe we can actually get Fangio. They have like the 27th ranked defense right now via DVOA. 27th. In fact, I saw this, which is what prompted it. Anthony DeBona, Eagles reporter for PFN 365, said, after releasing Devin White and starting Cooper DeJean, they decided Cooper DeJean was going to take over for Avonte Maddox in the slot, which is cool. I'm excited to see how Cooper does. I think most of us were Cooper fans as far as Packer fans are concerned. After releasing Devin White and starting Cooper DeJean over Avonte Maddox, the Eagles have already completed 2 of my 5 proposed steps to fix the team in 2024, which is hilarious because it's like, what do you mean fix the team? I, like probably many of you, have not really paid much attention to the Eagles after week 1. It's kind of just been, I don't know what they're doing out there, doing something probably. I think they're still a team. And I looked at it, I'm like, was this an off-season thing? No, it was written October 3rd. It was a week ago that this was written. 5 things to fix this team that sucks. And apparently 2 of the 5 were as described, but they're already like cutting players, promoting, demoting, doing all this stuff because it's such a freaking disaster. So I just want to do a quick victory lap and let everybody know that the NFL is done with the Vic Fangio defense. It's dead. It's over with. In fact, it was probably dead almost immediately after what happened with the Chicago Bears. It maybe had like another year left. There was not a lot of massive success. I think the Chargers had a little bit of success. There was some remnants out there. And then like some of the Chargers guys got hired away. It had a very, very limited shelf life because I think it was a devastating defense, and I think offenses adapted to it very quickly because there's no scoring. You can't do anything. You can't get down the field. Offenses very quickly adapted, and now defenses have to adapt to these new offenses, and it ain't the dang Fangio defense. It's just not. I think those are getting picked apart right now. And by those, I mean the Eagles are getting freaking destroyed. All right. Felt good to get that off my chest. Thank you so much, Eagles, for... I like being right once in a while, you know what I mean? Been having a rough year with my predictions. But I'm putting that in the W column, man. Fangio defense is dead. And screw it. Let's talk about the Jets for a second. Let's just do it. First of all, so we know the whole situation. We talked about it yesterday as far as firing the head coach. Stupid decision. I mean, leave Aaron Rodgers out of the discussion for a second. This is idiotic. Woody Johnson is a freaking moron. And to further prove my point, let me just get this set up so you can hear it. Listen to this little clip here. Ari Mirov posted this. Woody Johnson, I don't know who he's talking to, but here he is talking about Hassan Reddick. Listen to this.
I'm going to go a little bit off base here with apologies, but what is your take on why the Hassan Reddick situation has not worked out?
Rich, I would rely on you for this. This is something I've never seen before, and you've got even more years than I have. And I know I don't think any of us have seen anything like this. So I think you have to be part psychologist and part some other to try to figure out what is actually going on. I think, I hope that the young man can come to the team. We'd like to have Hassan here. We'd welcome him with open arms.
By the way, just as a recap, Hassan Reddick is the guy that they gave draft compensation to the Eagles to acquire, never gave him a contract, which is frickin' GMing 101. You don't take him on without a contract because all you're really bringing on now when you trade for this guy is the negotiation. So now you're stuck with the negotiation. And what if you don't come to a negotiation? You absolute idiot. And I know that's on the GM, and it is. That guy's a moron too. But Woody Johnson, Good Lord. What's going on with it? Boy, you would know better than me. Well, that's a terrible answer. I don't even know who he's talking to. That's a terrible answer. No, you should know. In fact, everybody already does know. You didn't give him a contract, and you're not willing to give him a contract that he wants, which is why the Eagles traded him to begin with, because he's asking for more money than he's worth. And the Eagles are like, screw this. And then the Jets called, and they're like, hey, we'll give you a bunch of compensation for him. And they're like, are you freaking serious? Like, heck yeah, dude, please take this guy. And now you're stuck with him with the same problem the Eagles had because you're that stupid. And then to go on and be like, oh, we need a psychologist and all this stuff, just acting as though, and it's not to say Hassan Reddick isn't being unreasonable or whatever the case may be, but pretending that like they've done everything right, but Hassan Reddick has just got some freaking mental disorder that's causing him to just stay away from football. Dude, he wants money. And if you pay him money, he'll play. And if you're not going to pay him money, it's because he's asking for too much, which is why you shouldn't have traded for him, you absolute bunch of morons.
And, I will extend that, and I haven't talked to Jeff, but I think he would feel exactly the same way. So when he gets here...
That's the new head coach, by the way.
He'll find a very welcome locker room, and he'll be able to fit right in, but he's got to get here first. Mm-hmm. So, Sam, get in your car, drive down 95, and come to the New York Jets, and we can meet you and give you an escort. Right into the building, and you'll fit right in, and you're going to love it here, and you're going to feel welcome, and you're going to accomplish great things with us.
I'm going to go.
Okay. So that's the owner of the Jets. That's sort of the de facto, I don't want to say GM necessarily, but kind of. Which, by the way, again, for everybody that says we'd be better off with an owner, this is what you're talking about. Right? Well, no, not like that, like a better owner. No. This is what owners do. Owners meddle, owners make decisions, and then the GMs have to pick up the pieces. So it's a combination effort between this guy making decisions that are stupid and the GM also making decisions that are stupid. And then when he has to enforce the decisions that are being made by Woody Johnson, he's doing a poor job of that as well. I don't know exactly who's to blame for what, but that's crazy. And then to follow all this just complete frickin' mess, I should talk to, what's his name? The guy that also does a Daily Jets podcast we've worked before, and just be like, bro, what's going on? Like what's the vibes out there right now? So then they fire that. Again, I don't want to rehash this whole thing, but they fire the head coach, which was not the right thing to do. We later found out that the head coach that was fired, blanking on his name, I got Desai stuck in my head, but you know who I'm talking about. He was planning to that day demote the offensive coordinator. Now, we'll put it in the conspiracy theory box as far as that's why he got fired. But I think like most things, it's an accumulation of problems. But the hilarious thing about it is let's leave aside the conspiracy that the rest of the team found out he was going to do that, and that's why he got fired because Rodgers was like, "Don't you dare mess with my friend." That's a fun conspiracy theory. We'll put that in our back pocket. The funniest part about the story is that it was the right thing to do, right? Saleh is his name. Saleh recognized we've been doing something stupid. We've been allowing this offensive coordinator to be terrible. We need somebody else to actually do the job. And so we're going to do that. Not that it would actually fix anything because it's Aaron Rodgers' offense. I mean, he's the one calling the plays. I'm sure there's some level of, I need you to call in certain plays. Like, you know what I mean? It's like Rodgers is trying to get a coach that understands what he wants. This is so funny because it's like he wants a wide receiver that runs the way he wants him to run. He needs an offensive coordinator to call the right plays at the right time. Like, I don't know. He's having a hard time finding people that are on his level, and I do mean that. Like, it's not sarcastic. He is on another plane, but I think the thing that he's missing is what everybody else has been saying, is that even if you first of all, you're not going to get everybody on your level. Not only because many people just can't get there, but also because it takes many, many, many years, right? For the record, it took him years to understand it. Mike McCarthy had to beat it into his head. These things take a long time, but beyond that, this offense doesn't freaking work. Even if you had it going at 110%, you might be able to do some cool stuff. I just don't think it's good enough. I don't think it's going to fully work. But anyways, Rodgers did go on McAfee. Of course, he said, no, that's not true. None of that's true. But of course, Listen, let me just put a couple things out there, okay? Because we've already been hearing reports that Rodgers and Saleh are not getting along, right? That's a well-known thing at this point. Of course, Rodgers is like, no, that's not true, and Saleh's like, no, that's not true. Okay, whatever. Here is one article. Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh reportedly had a heated argument after a post-game press conference. Rodgers refused to look at Saleh, team sources told WFAN 660. Their relationship began deteriorating after Rodgers' trip to Egypt when Saleh threw him under the bus. And then, one of my favorites from Adam Schefter, Jets owner Woody Johnson said he spoke to Rodgers on Monday night, but it wasn't about Robert Saleh. Johnson said Rodgers had no input on the decision made this morning. Right, so right before the guy gets fired, you call Rodgers into your office, have a conversation, and Saleh never came up? You freaking liar. And I'm not even saying this. Listen, this is not me saying Rodgers charged in, kicked in his door, and said, get that piece of crap off my team. But if you're telling me that Saleh didn't come up, you're a liar. Because here's what I know at the very least. You're not firing him without getting Rodgers' approval. Here is a very reasonable belief that I'm kind of holding. I don't think Rodgers is going to be so direct as to ever say, get that piece of crap off this team, I want him fired. He's not going to do that. I think it's been very well known that Saleh and Rodgers are not getting along. I think Rodgers is very unhappy with the job that Saleh is doing. And again, I think he's right about a lot of it. And I think what you have is more of a King Henry II sort of a situation. There's a story about King Henry II saying, will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest? Which, of course, his knights took to be a directive to go and kill the priest, which they did. And it's like, I didn't say that. I never said kill the priest. I'm just sitting here like, boy, it'd be great if that guy wasn't around anymore. Am I right, guys? And again, absolutely ridiculous to think that Woody Johnson is not going to run it past Rodgers. Now, to be fair, this is the dumbest organization of all time. I mean, the Browns are up there, but it's bad. Maybe he didn't. But even as much as I'm like thinking to myself, Rodgers shouldn't be given all this power and all this, you got to talk to Rodgers about it. Because first of all, this is I mean, it's a stupid decision to begin with to fire Saleh, but it could cause some serious rifts and some serious problems. I'm assuming you're more than likely doing this because you think Rodgers doesn't want him anyways. But you're telling me you wouldn't run it past him? What happens if you lose your quarterback because he's so mad that you fired the guy? Of course, he talked to him about it. Oh, it's so just annoying how stupid they think we are. Well, yeah, I mean, they didn't like each other, but it's fine. They're good friends and they respect each other, and there was no rift at all. There's 75 different reports of them fighting and arguing and not liking each other, and we've heard some of the comments directly. Like I said, like Saleh saying maybe we need to get away from cadence, and Rodgers like, well, that's one way to handle it. The other would be to hold people accountable, which again, he's right about. That's a very obvious, like, yeah, he's an idiot, and we need to not do it that way. We need to, and of course, Saleh being just this weak, soft, ridiculous coach just immediately comes out and is like, oh, yeah, no, Rodgers is right, and he's 100% right, which, of course, Rodgers hates. He hates weak leaders. He does. That's why I don't think he really liked Matt LaFleur very much. I don't mean to insult LaFleur, and I do think he's kind of turned a corner in that regard. But I think he was kind of like, hey, guys. And Rodgers wanted more of a tough guy, McCarthy type of a figure. I don't know. I just, it's so painfully obvious, at least the outer edges of it. How deep that rabbit hole runs, I don't know. Rodgers did not like Saleh. Woody would not have fired Saleh if he didn't believe it was what Rodgers wanted, because it's a completely stupid decision that has no bearing on how it's going to help you win in this season. None. And you're not going to at least run it past Rodgers. So knock it off. Please. Give me a freaking break. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll take a look at the injury report, which is fantastico. We got a hilarious situation. Update about the hurricane there. Hilarious situation. Not the hurricane is hilarious, but Christian Watson's dad got into an argument with one of the Twitter doctors who insisted that Christian Watson's dad didn't know what the heck he was talking about. And actually, I'm the doctor here, and I would know. And it was funny because he never just dropped the I'm his dad card and I know. He just kept arguing with him and let him keep pulling the I'm a doctor card. Anyways, we'll get to that. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. By the way, let me continue to plug the Substack. If you want to support the podcast, patreon.com/pack_daddy is one of the easiest ways to do that. You can support me as a recurring thing for as little as $1 a month. It'd be greatly appreciated. But I've been leaning a little bit more into the Substack just because it's easier. And if you want, you can leave the Patreon and go over to the Substack or whatever. I've tried to do both. Patreon's just hard. It's not really built to be, whatever. I don't know. I'm not asking you to leave. I'm just saying, if you're going to go to the other one, that's fine. But, I've been putting together some articles there. A lot of them are free for now, is a, kind of way to get people interested. But we also have the game day chats, which I was glad a lot of people joined in on that last week. Planning on doing that again this week. So, packernet.substack.com. You can join for free. First of all, everybody practiced today except Devontae Wyatt. Even the Devontae Wyatt situation appears to be not that bad. I've just been waiting patiently for them to put him on IR, and they're just not doing it. So I tried to find some information about Wyatt. All I really know is, I believe anyways, is that it's an ankle injury. He's not on IR, and we'll see how it goes. All right, let's start off with Matt LaFleur's interview here. First of all, we might as well start with Devontae Wyatt. He's no longer in the boot, which is good. Coach is hopeful for a quick return, if not this week, then soon, which, all this injury stuff is about kind of reading between the lines, although the lines are pretty far apart, I guess. It's stupid. It's easy to read between them. I don't know. They say whether it's day to day or week to week or whatever the case may be, but, when they say he's out of the boot and we're hoping for a quick return, if not this week soon, it means potentially this week, right? So that in and of itself is a win. Now, maybe it's not this week, maybe it's next week, maybe it's the week after that, I don't know. But that's the thing, it frames your thinking into sort of this week, probably not, but maybe next week kind of feels good. The week after that feels like it would be the latest, but who knows, right? Because you're also operating within this IR thing that they're not putting him on. Limited participants today: Kenny Clark, Cooper, Ford, Jenkins, Morgan, Musgrave, Valentine, Christian Watson, and Wyatt did not participate. I think that's correct. Massively good news that Christian Watson did return to practice, even in a limited fashion. Matt LaFleur obviously said he's happy about that. Mentioned how much they missed him last week, how important he is to the offense, which, again, I continue to stand by that. It's funny because I was just thinking about this the other day. He's obviously important in terms of his speed. He can be a weapon, as a receiver. His speed in terms of stretching the defense and stressing the defense and game planning and all that stuff. But also, like most receivers on this team, he's a really good blocker. He's been doing a great job with that. Coach is hopeful that he'll be able to return. Might as well jump over to this now because it's a funny little interaction. And by the way, I am appreciative to the Twitter doctors for coming out and trying to give us the best possible diagnosis they can. But you got to be careful, man. You can't just be popping off and pulling the, the whole I do this for a living thing. Who are you to talk to me? I know you don't. That's, first of all, it's condescending and stupid. But whatever. Jesse Morse, who is one of the guys here, he posted that Christian Watson had a high ankle sprain, and he quote tweeted that and said, "I am genuinely surprised that Christian Watson was able to practice today. There is a possibility he returns in week 6, but limit your expectations for him." Then Tazim Wajed, however you pronounce that, Christian Watson's dad, said, FYI, it was not a high ankle sprain. This was just what they initially thought it was. He's pacing to expectations for what he has. I don't know what that means, but actually I do know what that means. He's saying he's on track considering what his injury actually is. He went to college. He's smart. I don't know how he does those words and whatnot. But first of all, that in and of itself was a surprise because I was operating under the assumption that it was a high ankle sprain. I mean, that's what I had heard. I had not heard a definitive update that wasn't the case. So I was very surprised to hear that. And so, of course, the doc chimes in and says, I watched the video. Yes, it was. Watson's dad responds, so you think watching a video precludes the actual MRI and the doctors reading it? And he says, I've been doing this since 2017. I'm very good at what I do, with about an 85 to 90% accuracy just based off video. I know every single quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end's injury history. I'm confident in my abilities. Take care. I know doctors can be a little confident, shall we say. They're very full of themselves and all that. But, bro, you could have just said, listen, I've got an 80 to 95% accuracy rate. I don't 100% know, but I feel confident in my assessment. He laid it on so thick that it's like, you know what? At this point, I'm kind of glad that he's going to make you look stupid. He goes on to say, well, if you want to keep on spreading misinformation, in this case, based upon your 85 to 90% accuracy on quote-unquote video diagnosis, then have at it. I'm telling you, he had a medial sprain, not a high ankle sprain. That diagnosis didn't come from watching a video. It literally came from the doctors who examined him and read x-rays and MRIs, then proceeded to treat him. I'm done. Do with it what you will. And then, of course, he goes, well, I just thought you were some Packer troll and all, whatever. It's like, I'm sorry, the damage is done at this point, man. You got way too confident for me to feel bad for you at this point. And again, I'm glad that he didn't just lead with, actually, I'm his dad and I know the situation, and allowed him to just put his own foot in his mouth. I thought that was funny. I'm sick, all right? I'm sick in the head. I enjoy the abuse. So, medial sprain, which, of course, I went to AI, the Doc GPT or whatever, and at first it was like, yeah, medial sprain is a knee thing, and I thought maybe that was the case because the MCL is the medial ligament, but there is a medial ankle sprain. It has something to do with the deltoid, which is confusing because it's like, isn't that in your back? Whatever. I don't know. Bottom line is, again, it's the exact same thing. If it's a low grade, if it's a mid grade, if it's a high grade, whatever it can be 1 to 2 weeks. So obviously I don't know where he's at, but the team seems to think that he could possibly return. He's well within the range of return based on what a low grade one could be. I mean, he's already missed a week. So anyways, that exchange was funny, but yeah, very, very happy to find out the situation there. And it sounds, I mean, we could have Watson and Wyatt back. I would be shocked if Wyatt's back. I guess he's, kind of like with Jordan, you expect him to practice. Of course, we learned that that's not the case, but it's like if he doesn't practice, you feel like he's not going to play. I talked about Jair. Obviously, I don't know 100% his situation, but the fact that he's back practicing, I think is fantastic. I cannot wait to get him back. Again, flawed as he may be, as much as people may be upset that he's not as good as you hoped in your dreams, all it takes is a few games without him to look at it and go, please come back. No offense to the guys we got, but please, Jair, come back. But Matt LaFleur heaped praise on him, said, he was good last year. He's way better this year as far as the numbers, their internal numbers, whatever that may be. I haven't really looked into it. It's kind of early anyways, but I believe it. It seems like he's playing a pretty good season. Said his offseason work contributed to that improvement, has a better understanding of offense and effective in both pass and run, da-da-da-da-da. You get the idea, right? He's good at everything. Talked about the quarterback, Jordan Love, that is, and his sort of wild and erratic decision-making, and said, that essentially the theme of it was there's a time and a place where I can understand it, but I need you to just do what you're supposed to do. Read the play, make the correct read, make the correct throw. Because as we've already seen, and if you've been on social media or whatever, you've probably seen several of these. I've mentioned a few of them. Even on the plays that don't work, you can see that something magical was set up. Matt LaFleur does a great job. And again, this is the opposite of what an Aaron Rodgers offense is. Aaron Rodgers ran the offense. He got everybody to the line, and then he decided what everybody was going to be doing based on what he read from the defense. Matt LaFleur has it all figured out. Matt LaFleur figures it out on the sideline, and Jordan just has to get the play. There's still thinking involved, but I think the frustration for Rodgers was it was pretty minimal, especially for a guy like him. But for Jordan, it's I gave you a play. I need you to read the defense and then understand. It's like I'm trying to communicate to you through the play. I'm trying to tell you what I'm seeing. And of course, he can talk into the helmet and tell him that stuff too if there's time. But there's a reason for the play. And I need you to understand what that reason is so that you know where your eyes need to be. Now, based on the defensive coverage and based on the play I called, you need to be looking here or there, right? Whether this guy goes this way, whatever. You need to know what to do. And just throw to the right guy. Because what we don't want, again, I think Jordan does a good job of that. And a lot of times he does the big play stuff and it works and that's great. But what we really don't want is a situation kind of similar to what we saw with Rodgers for a while. I think in like 2022, 2021, whatever, where you see a guy open and he's like, nah, and then launches it deep down the field and it falls incomplete. And it's like, why the heck? You know, I mean, it's 2nd and 8. You could check it down. We probably get a first down. If not, it's 3rd and 1. What is the point of the 45-yard heave-ho to MVS? That, of course, is not going to work because it never works. We don't want to get into that situation. You don't need the 50-yard play right now. We don't need Jameis Winston with his 33 touchdowns and 30 interceptions and 5,100 yards, which is what he had in his final season with Tampa Bay, by the way. That's not what we need. That's not what we want. We want a efficient, machine-like operation. You know, we're thinking Tom Brady, efficient, just always in the right spot to the right guy at the right time. I've said it 1,000 times. I hated the Patriots so much because they made football look too easy. There's always a guy freaking wide open, and Tom Brady just has to dump it off to him. And it's like, Tom Brady's the greatest. It's like Tom Brady has the easiest job in the world. And that's only, of course, partially true because Tom Brady has to know where to go. And of course, he's doing things like looking off safeties and all this other stuff that you don't really see. But it just, the whole operation makes football look too easy. And we've seen that with the Packers. Again, guys wide open on 3rd and 10. 12 yards down the field on like a quick out. Like we run that every time. How do they not cover? I don't understand. But he's good at understanding how to scheme these things open. And it's Jordan's job to make sure you find the right guy. So anyways, that was the main thing, right? It's quarterback has to read each play independently and follow what the defense dictates, right? I'm going to give you a play, and depending on what they do with defense, you do when they zig, you zag, right? That's it. He did mention that there have been more single high safety, which go figure, right? The NFL is evolving, moving that direction. We're getting away from the Fangio 2 high, moving into the 1 high, all that stuff. So that does mean more shots, right? Less checkdowns, more deep passes, which is fine because Matt can cook up some deep shots too. And again, Christian Watson, man, this is it. This is it. This is the whole thing. You want to play single high, man-to-man coverage with Christian Watson? And if you're telling me, well, then we'll just shade the one safety we have over to Watson. Really? So the entire back half of the field is basically wide open. So it's like you have no safeties. Great. So we can send Reed up that way in man-to-man coverage. Or, again, how about Musgrave? You're telling me that with no safety help, because of course, no, we're going to shade the safety in single high. Like, okay. You're going to have a linebacker in man coverage against Musgrave streaking down the field? I think there's opportunities here is all I'm saying. If people are going to be playing single high, you know, it's like, I don't know if you watch that quarterbacks thing from a couple years ago on Netflix or a year ago or whatever. There was a period there was a single game where they were playing the Chiefs, or the Chiefs were the team that we were watching. And they started playing like single high, and it really worked. I think they got a pick on Pat Mahomes. And instead of being angry, he's like, bro, if you're going to play like that, we're going to kill you. He wasn't even mad. He was excited that that's what they were doing. And of course, they went back out and just shredded him. Like, you're giving me a gift. Like, all this little dink and dunk crap, we do that because that's what defenses dictate. Because they're trying to take away all our good stuff. You're going to let us have our good stuff back? Dang. And that's where a team like Green Bay, I think, is built really well because they're built to be multiple. You can put Tucker Kraft and, Ben Sims on the ends with a 225-pound thumping running back, with wide receivers that are really good blockers, and you can play downhill, grind it out football. But if teams want to try to take that away, we got Musgrave, we got Watson, we got Reed, we got speed. So, anyways, a couple comments about the Cardinals. We don't really need to super get into that. Matt LaFleur, like most coaches, are extremely complimentary of the opponents, and it's not all completely untrue, but sometimes it's a little over the top. But talked about James Conner, and James Conner is a good back. Kyler Murray, of course, can be scary. Not that he necessarily has to be, but, he can be. And Marvin Harrison, the rookie wide receiver and whatnot. We'll get into all that probably tomorrow, not so much today. But I want to, as far as his comments, end on some of the Romeo Doubs stuff. I'm not going to go through and play it all because there's a lot of words and there's not as many important things. The main thing I want to focus on is I think there's a lot of hints toward the reports were correct. And one of the most important things that Matt LaFleur talked about, he says there's a chain of command, you're supposed to go to your position coach, et cetera, et cetera. But then he starts talking about the fact that we're a people business. There's a lot of different people, and every single individual person has their own individual wants, right? It's just human nature. Everybody has their own individual ends. But he goes on to say, at some point you gotta focus on what's best for the team, right? And let's be honest, those are always going to be the best. Well, I don't know the best way to say it, but putting team first is going to work for everybody. It just is. And there's several people that mentioned this. Matt LaFleur said it. Also Christian Watson, which we'll get to. I'm going to play that clip. But again, the theme here surrounding Romeo Doubs is you have your wants and desires, and I get it, but you have to put the team first. What is that about? Well, the rumor that was coming out of all this is that he's upset with his amount of targets. And, I had gone on to speculate that, he's coming close to his contract time. He probably is in meeting rooms seeing that, that there's going to be plans to get this guy open, that guy open. He's seeing probably his role be diminished by people, especially like Reed, by Tucker Kraft, who's now getting more opportunities. They're still pushing Wicks, clearly, despite the drops. And I think he's feeling as though I do everything. I'm the one that's going out and dying for these balls. I'm trying as hard as I possibly freaking can. Wicks can't catch a ball. You're putting him out in front of me. Jaden Reed is getting all this hype. He's being schemed wide open. I could run that route. I could be the one to get the ball in that situation. Why don't you put me in that situation? And he finally just had enough. Because I think the realization is coming that, by the time his contract comes around, he's going to be negotiating with the team and the Green Bay Packers that are going to be viewing him as wide receiver 3 or 4. And he's upset about it. Here's I think, the picture that he's missing. There's a very good chance that the Packers are going to look at you as a wide receiver 3 or 4 and are not necessarily going to want to pay you as much as maybe another team would. Because just because you're a 3, maybe, let's call it, on this team doesn't mean you wouldn't be a 2 or maybe even a 1 on some teams that are kind of lacking in wide receiver. Certainly a solid number 2 wide receiver. Maybe the situation is you're as much as I don't want it to be the case, although if this attitude thing continues, I maybe do want it to be the case, but you're always auditioning. And if it's not for the Packers, it's for somebody else. And if you get to the point where it's time for your contract and the Packers are not willing to give you what you think you're worth, then you have 31 other teams that might be willing to give you some money. If you're not going to be a team player, that's going to hurt your contract situation. It is. Teams are not going to want to put up with this crap. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want a guy that's just going to sit out a game because he's unhappy about his usage. I mean, this is diva stuff. This is stuff. I mean, there are guys that are way better than Romeo Doubs that teams have quit on, like Stephon Diggs. He was great for Minnesota. Minnesota's like, bro, I can't. I can't. Imagine how bad you have to be, or how much of a cancer you have to be. And granted, I know he wanted to kind of force his way off and everything else, but still, Minnesota was like, yeah, dude, yeah, you got to go. And same with Buffalo. There was financial considerations, but that wasn't it. He was a toxic person in the locker room, and now he's over with Houston. Teams, even if you're one of the best in football, and he is, Stephon Diggs, I mean, he's a number 1. He's a number 1 wide receiver. Teams are letting him go because it's not worth it. So what is that going to do to you if you're a maybe a 2? You cannot do that. You just can't. There's a video that came out that appeared to be a cold interaction between Matt LaFleur and Romeo Doubs. I don't necessarily know. It's hard to tell. The camera angle, it could have very well been like Matt LaFleur went for like a high five or a handshake and didn't get one, and Romeo Doubs ignored him. It could have been like a really quick handshake and then he just went about his business. Romeo's kind of an introvert, quiet guy, whatever. But it does kind of make me wonder as you look at it, like it feels like he might still have a bit of an attitude. Like, I'm coming back because I have to, but I'm not happy about it. And just the way, again, I'll play the Christian Watson thing, the way Watson talks, it does not sound like it's a resolved issue. Sounds like it's a problem. And it sounds like Doubs is not really excited about being a team player or whatever, And again, maybe this is just a rift and it's got to get patched or whatever, but it's certainly a major red flag. It's a thing that we didn't know existed with Romeo Doubs. And, there are guys that act this way, right? I didn't think Doubs would be one of them. But we know several football players, especially wide receivers for whatever reason, that just do this stuff. So, we'll just have to keep an eye on it and hope that it gets better. And, obviously I'm going to be hoping for a big Romeo Doubs day just as a way to, I'm not saying force it to him unnecessarily. Play the game to win as best as you can. If that means no passes to Doubs, then fine. But I'm just hoping that as a result of them playing their best football, Romeo has a big day and that helps to smooth things over. But I don't know. But, again, Matt LaFleur asked like three or four questions in a row. And, just continued to emphasize team success leads to individual recognition, and he's right. He's right. It's the same with coaches. It doesn't matter if you suck at your job. If your team wins, you got a good chance of getting hired. It doesn't matter if you're good at your job. If your team sucks, you're probably not going to get hired. If you're a Super Bowl champion wide receiver with stats through the roof and all the accolades and everybody watched you through the playoffs make all these big plays, you're going to get a big paycheck. But some people are short-sighted. They don't think about it. It's all about me now. And, again, I know it's bigger than that because you're feeling your accomplishments, and he is a really hard worker, and it's not paying off for him necessarily. I could understand that being frustrating, but this is a stupid way to handle it is the bottom line. It's also funny listening to Matt LaFleur talk about the Robert Saleh situation. Bottom line, he said he's grateful for the leadership and stability within the Packers organization, which, first of all, I find funny because of all the Packer fans who are Packer haters, think the organization is bad or wrong or stupid or mean or whatever. But it's also funny because Matt LaFleur very obviously recognizes this is stupidity, right? It's he doesn't approach it from the standpoint of, it sucks that Saleh lost his job, but he was bad at it. Not that he would say that, but from that vantage point. Instead, he looks at it from the vantage point of, well, that was stupid. I'm glad I don't, work for a franchise or a corporation that is so poorly run that I could lose my job for no reason. It's like, whatever. Freaking hilarious to me. Just the worst. All right, let's take a break. I want to get to some of the other guys, at least Christian Watson. We'll see what else we get to, but we'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, Christian Watson update. This comes from Christian Watson at his locker room post-practice. He mentioned that he is hopeful to be playing this week. He said last week I wasn't quite ready, but I'm hopeful to be on the field this week. He aims to be on the field this week, let's put it that way. Mentioned that he feared the worst when it first happened. Asked the same questions about Jordan. Of course, it was the same thing. But let's just dive into this, and I'm going to play it so you can kind of hear it and not just have me summarize it. Here's the question and answer on the Romeo Doubs situation in part.
As Romeo, or does he need to have conversation, or does he need to do anything to earn, I don't want to say respect, but respect back after what happened last week among his teammates?
I think that we all, respect the way that Rome goes about his business in the building, and I think we have a tight-knit family. Everyone's going to have their own opinions on the situation, but at the end of the day, I think 2 days isn't going to ruin the 3 years of work and commitment he's put in for us. It'll definitely be a little weird right away, just because it was a pretty significant situation for him. But he's roamed us, so I think it'll blow by pretty quick, and we'll all be right back to how we were.
Rome better than everybody. Probably came in with them. Was this just knowing his personality? Was this kind of out of left field, shocking for you that this even is happening in his situation?
It is definitely surprising, but it's a mentally taxing business. There's a lot going on. We all have our own individual goals. So you really never will truly know what somebody's thinking, and I'll never want to talk down on anyone's mental health. So if I don't really still know the exact.
So again, first of all, it's the first kind of, a lot of this so far has just been coach speaky or whatever. First time he mentioned mental health. Nobody said anything about mental health, right? And that's kind of a question mark at this point. It seemed to be for sure mental health at first because they said it was a personal thing. But then when they suspended him, it's like, I don't know. So, he didn't say it was a mental health issue, but he brought it up completely unsolicited. So it feels as though that is a component.
Specifics of the situation, but whenever someone's going through something, they, do things that, you wouldn't really expect from them. So
he also, and again, I'm just trying to read the tea leaves here. Based on what he just said right there, sounds like this is him, if we're saying it's a mental health situation, he acted in a way that he wouldn't have otherwise. In other words, it was almost as if he was going through a bit of an episode, which again is where on the other side of things, you almost think, is a suspension warranted, or is that even the right thing to do necessarily? And I understand the Packers came out and talked about code of conduct and you have to do this, that, or the other. And they didn't do it at first. Maybe there was just sort of a line that they drew in the sand as far as like, we're going to let you get through this, but we need you back for the game. And when he refused, it was like, okay, well then we have to do something. I don't know. But again, just listening to Watson, what he says, number one, he mentions mental health. And then number two, talks about how, when you're going through something, sometimes you do things that you wouldn't ordinarily do. Right. So it sounds like he had a bit of an episode and kind of just went off the grid.
Like I said, it is what it is. So, it's behind us now. We just move on.
You've been through so much with Romeo the past couple of years. What was Thursday like for you and last week as a whole, just to not have him there and then kind of rationalizing for yourself?
It was tough. At that point, we didn't really, know for sure what was going on with him. So, it was definitely, concerning for just me personally, just, knowing him as a man and just, knowing that he could possibly be going through, whatever at this time because we didn't really know what was going on. But
again, an allusion to some kind of a serious, we'll call it medical issue.
It's tough just because that. I always want the best for Rome, regardless of the situation, regardless of whether we're playing on the same team or playing on different teams in the future. I'm always going to want the best for Rome. So, just knowing that he's in that that position was definitely. It's tough.
So, and again, it's like there's a part of me that's thinking maybe he's speaking primarily in the past tense, and he's saying, at the time I thought maybe, but he ended it by saying it was tough. In other words, he closed it by almost confirming, I guess, that there was something going on, and it was a difficult thing to go through, not only for him but for everybody else worried about what he was going through.
General sense, how would you describe the scrutiny of being an NFL wide receiver?
There's a lot of expectation. There's a lot of, things and there's a lot of things that people expect you to do and they expect you to be, a certain type of player. And, there's guys on the other side of the ball that are getting paid a lot of money to play the game as well. So, things don't always go your way. So, it's tough to live up to it sometimes, but we all have goals for ourselves as well that we want to live up to, and I'm sure they exceed what everybody else is even thinking of us. So, I think for me personally, I can only speak for myself. I'm always going to be harder than anybody out there I'm always going to be harder on myself than anyone out there is going to be on me. So, it is what it is. You got to keep on chopping and just push for your personal goals.
Did you do teamwork today?
Skip over this one question, then we'll dive back into it here. By the way, the answer to that question is no, but he's hoping to be involved in team drills soon is the answer to that question.
Christian, Matt talked about it's his job to do what's best for the team as the head coach. Mm-hmm. As receivers, we've heard Vrabel and all you guys talk about you got to be unselfish, especially when you have four guys of your caliber in that room. How easy is it to put aside individual goals for team goals, especially when you and Rome are coming up on contract situations?
I wouldn't say it's easy at all, to be honest. Everyone has, different, everyone's a different person. Everyone has, their own views on everything. How I look at it is, if I just keep on doing what I do and keep on striving to be the player that I'm going to be, at some point, whether it's, tomorrow or, 5 years from now, I'm going to, get what I deserve in one way or another, whether it's, $1 million or, $50 million. It is what it is. So, I think everyone just has their own views on it, but, it's definitely tough. because I mean it's a business at the end of the day. Everyone's their own corporation. Everyone's trying to provide for their families and whatnot. It's tough to just go by when it seems like it's never going your way. But I mean I don't really think that's been the case.
So again, just kind of understanding that he's talking about the situation, kind of we're sideswiping it as we're going through, just talking in generalities. But when he comes out and says it's tough, especially when things don't seem to ever be going your way, he's in my opinion clearly talking about Romeo and his frustrations, because not only because it seems obvious in and of itself, but how he pivots off of that and then says, but I don't think it's necessarily going that way. In other words, from my perspective, I don't see it that way. But I understand, some people having that perspective, whoever that may be.
Here for a lot of us, I think we've gotten opportunities. All of us would love to get more, but, I think that the team goal would come first, and, gripe about the individual goals, later.
So there you go. Again, from his perspective, and I think that this is correct, and I think that it is in line with what the situation is, at least in part, is, and it's not to say that Romeo doesn't understand this and that he doesn't at some point or to some degree want this, but I just think it's been boiling over. Understanding that team success comes first, right? But I do think the pressure is mounting, as the person that asked the question said, as I've been saying, Romeo and Christian's contracts are coming up. And it's hard to just stay focused on, just help the team win, especially when things keep going wrong. I mean, just for the team too, where, you lose the first game, then you lose your quarterback, and then the next time back, it's not great. And there's a lot of drops, and you're having drop issues. And, and that's probably a big part of it too. Not even just, Matt LaFleur's not scheming me up or whatever. I mean, frustration with himself. You work so hard to be, hopefully, you want to be the next Jerry Rice or something, right? I mean, that's the standard you're setting for yourself. You want to be the greatest. And you come out and drop a ball, and one of those balls that you drop turns into a pick, even though that was a weird thing or whatever too. But he was obviously very upset about that whole thing. I'm sure there's just a point at which you kind of snap, where it's never going to happen. Like I work so hard, and it's just not going to happen. And that realization sets in. And again, it's not to say that it won't for Romeo. It still could happen. He's a good receiver either way. But, maybe there's just a point where it's like, I can't believe it. Like, I'm just going to be one of these freaking guys that's just kind of, that travels around for a while and then is out. I'm not saying that's exactly the situation. I'm just saying I could understand how that pressure would start to mount after a while. When you first come in with Christian, you're feeling good. You're playing with Rodgers and all this stuff. It's getting crazy, and you're getting recognition. Like, I can't believe how good this guy is. And then it just kind of flatlines, and people aren't talking about you anymore. And you're not really progressing. You're still just kind of the same guy, and you're watching people pass you on the depth chart, and you can't be great. Again, from my perspective, I think most Packers, like, he's solid. Like, he should get a super big paycheck and play in the NFL for a long time. But, these guys set lofty goals for themselves. And again, even, I've always respected Romeo as being one of the hardest working guys on the team. And I think that can backfire a little bit when you don't necessarily see the results you want to see. When you are obsessive and when you are psychotic about being the best, and then you don't quite achieve that, that could be that would get to most people, I would think.
Forward, how do you make this work? Well, you just said this is a business. Obviously, I think people sometimes on the outside can lose track of that. Mm-hmm. Or look at all these young talented wide receivers. There's only one ball, right? Mm-hmm. How do you go forward in terms of camaraderie after last week?
You just move on. Obviously that's pretty simple thing to say and doesn't really sound like much, but we've got a new game plan this week, a new goal this week to win this football game. So, there'll probably be, a few bumps in the road, just, I'm trying to get that, togetherness and that family feeling back.
So that's important. One of the things we've never heard from him, he kind of wanted to talk about it at first, like, he's always going to be Rome to me and whatever. He never did sort of the outright Aaron Rodgers denial, right? This is a frickin' media concoction. You're all a bunch of idiots. You don't know what you're talking about. There is no issue. Romeo is fine. There's never been a bump in the road. You guys are just making this crap up. He never did that. Not even close. I mean, the question came up, how do you move forward? If there was no issue, if there wasn't any kind of rift or anything, you look at the guy and just go, what do you mean? I mean, everything's fine. Like, we're good. He didn't do that. In fact, he goes on to say things like, you just move on. And he didn't say, like, as teammates or anything like that. He's like, you personally move on. We got a game plan. We focus on that. We go out, we do our job. And then he specifically says there's going to be bumps in the road trying to get that camaraderie back. That sounds serious, right? Like, it clearly is. And I could understand that too, because what is Romeo saying? You keep giving the ball to that frickin' guy over there, and it should be me. That's not going to go over well, right? Because Reed works hard too, and Wicks works hard too, and Watson works hard too. So it's a weird thing where it's like, I feel bad for the guy, I respect the guy, I want the best for the guy, but you're also screaming at the coach saying, take the ball away from me and give it to you. How about F you, bro? On top of, you quit on the team and you have an attitude and don't seem to want to be here. Like, it's not a great environment right now. So, he could have played it off and been like, there's no issue. I don't know what you're talking about. He didn't. And he acknowledged that there is an issue and it's going to take some work to kind of get past this.
But I mean, at the end of the day, he's back in the building. And I know that, his goal is, also to win, a football game this week. So, I mean, we all have the same, team goal. So I think that we're all pushing for that. It'll bring us back together.
Did today feel a little bit awkward?
It'll bring us back together. That's all you need to know.
You kind of mentioned it might take a little time, but today, did they feel like that?
I mean, honestly, it didn't feel that bad today. I
didn't feel that bad. I mean, again, these are softballs. These are softballs. Did it feel awkward today? No, not at all. It's Romeo, dude. We're good friends. Did it feel bad? Or was it awkward? I mean, honestly, not too bad. It wasn't too. The answer to that question is very obviously yes. It was very weird. It was very awkward. It was probably very tense. It is what it is.
Obviously, I wasn't, taking part in a lot of the team reps and everything, but from what I saw, it looked like it went pretty well. And I think just from the little conversation I had with Rome this morning, I feel like he understands where he's at, and obviously the ramifications of it, and he's gonna just do everything he can to just earn his role back in this team and just get right back to where we were.
I don't know if you're.
So, again, I still have a lot of questions, and I don't fully understand. And it seems like there's two kind of competing things. They're both probably true, but I don't know to what extent. I don't know. What I do know about the Packers, though, is they're very serious, right? As much as I think a lot of people would be like, oh, be compassionate. I mean, they're going to look at this and say, this is a business. You completely disrespected your team. This is conduct detrimental. I mean, what you've done is completely unacceptable. I mean, this is not going to go over very easily. So as much as Romeo might be having an attitude, and I don't know if he is, maybe he's moved on, maybe he's trying to do whatever, like he said, trying to earn his spot back, but the team is going to look at him with much more scrutiny now too. It's not like this whole begging him to like, oh, please work for us again, please work hard, please. It's you bailed on the team. If you ever do that again, you're gone. Right? There is going to be an element of you're going to have to earn the respect back, not just from your teammates, from your coaches, from the GM, from the organization. You put yourself on the outs, and that's not good. I'm just saying it's that probably is a thing. Now, at the end of the day, they're going to draw up game plans, and Jordan Love's going to throw to guys. And if Romeo's the guy that's open, then so be it. But I don't know. The one thing I'm quite sure of is Matt LaFleur is not going to bend over backwards and be like, well, let's just give it to Romeo because he would feel better. And I'm not saying that he's going to cut Romeo's snaps necessarily, but I don't expect any amount of give here. I don't think there was a compromise that they came to of, I'll come back, but I want more reps. And Matt's like, okay, fine, we'll get. No. And if that did happen, Gutekunst needs to go down and smack Matt LaFleur and be like, don't you frickin' ever do that again. You don't negotiate with terrorists. I'm just saying. I'm not saying he's a terrorist. It's a principle thing. It works in this context as well. The reason you don't negotiate with terrorists is what? It will encourage them to do it again. And not only him, but everybody else. Then you're going to have other players saying, well, I'm going to sit out. I'm going to take a freaking day off, and then I'm going to get what I want on the other end. No. No negotiation. That's not how this works. Anyways, a couple other things. Jordan Love did apologize to Watson, apparently, for that ball that got him hurt. He said no hard feelings. It's how football works. But, Jordan did the right thing and went up and was like, that was messed up. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. Max Melton, Cardinal. So Bo is going to be up against his brother, so that's kind of cool, especially on special teams. I guess they're both special teamers, so they might be kind of going head-to-head there. Maybe even offense, defense. I don't know. I don't really know. We'll take a look at their roles, but I don't know if Bo's going to have much of a role if everybody's healthy, and I have no idea what Max is doing. We'll look at that later. All right, we're running a little long, so let's fly through some of the Jordan Love things. So first of all, as far as Romeo Doubs, he just said he doesn't really want to talk about it. He said that's something that needs to be handled in-house. I'm not going to talk to you about it, which I think is probably the appropriate way to go. I'm kind of happy with Jordan and sort of the whole leadership thing with him. Nothing against anybody else, but I just feel like that's a good answer, right? Like that's an inside the family thing that we're going to work on. He did just say, I would encourage anybody to kind of speak openly if you're having any issues, because obviously a lot of people have said that there's some kind of an issue with, obviously this was out of left field. Wouldn't make sense if you've heard Romeo talk about this 100 times to be like, you got to communicate. Praise Xavier McKinney. Says he's feeling good after his health issue. Talked about Jair and how much he's improved. Talked about how they adapted in the second half. The Rams are playing a lot of single high again. I think that's something that, and we'll make excuses as long as we can before we just get to the point where it's like, I guess it's going to be a week 9 thing again. But the new excuse for this week, I suppose, could simply be, teams are running a lot more of the single high as opposed to, again, almost half the league's running some variant of Fangio, 2 high, whatever. Maybe the game plans need to alter, going into these games as opposed to, at halftime saying, okay, we didn't expect that. They're doing this. We got to adjust what kind of plays we're running, et cetera, and then coming out in the second half. I don't know. Said he's excited to be home after a couple, long road trips. They went to Brazil week 1. They went all the way out to California this past week. It's nice to just kind of stay home, which is a good thing. I love when the Packers get to play at home. It's just, I believe in the home field advantage, at least for the Packers, for sure. He did make some kind of a silly comment about how he's learned from his mistakes. He's learned from past mistakes. It's like, no, you haven't. Like, let's just be completely honest. You could say I'm learning or I'm trying to improve. Saying I've learned, no, you have not learned, as evidenced by this past game. But he did go on to say, look, I'm an aggressive quarterback, so I just got to find a way to kind of balance that a little bit better. He said he got the coaches gave him a 0 on that play where he threw into triple coverage, and he acknowledged that it was a bad decision. He should not have done it, but he's grateful that Reed made the play. And then did go on to praise Tucker Kraft, which is pretty cool. Tucker has worked hard since joining the team, even when he wasn't getting reps, which I'm sure that wasn't a shot, but it's funny anyways. He worked hard even when, it seemed like he wasn't getting any attention. He's respected for his work ethic and play style, which includes fighting for extra yards. That I don't know if you saw that mic'd up thing. Maybe I'll have to try to remember to play that for tomorrow, but there's some quotes in there that are just fantastic. Some guys are let's just call it what it is. They're a little bit fake when it comes to the mentality. There are guys that are built a certain way that don't necessarily have the mentality behind it. Tucker isn't even necessarily built like a beast or a monster, but he has the mentality. I mean, he's just kind of a throwback, just good old boy, grew up on a farm. He's one of those guys that have fit in great in like the 60s, with the boys at a bar, just getting into a bar fight or something, like he does not care. And that's good to have. But anyways, why don't we get out of here? You guys have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.